Hello and welcome to Women in Mobility. Today we have a guest by name Deepa Sathiaram. Deepa is an internationally renowned expert in green and well buildings and is one of the first women in the HVAC industry in India. She is recognized amongst the top 5 women in sustainability in the world and has spearheaded India's green building movement since early 2000. Unlike many of her engineering classmates who pursued careers in IT, she chose to enter the HVAC field. When she joined Voltas, she became one of the first women HVAC designers in India. It was not easy trying to establish herself in a male-dominated industry, but her strong capabilities and domain knowledge made everyone take her seriously. She has been actively involved in various Women in Green and Women in HVAC initiatives and has mentored several women to pursue their dreams while making India a global leader in the war against climate change. She believes climate change is a challenge for every industry and it is critical time now for the automobile industry to embrace sustainability. Deepa, welcome to Women in Mobility, an initiative by Mobility Outlook to understand the perspective of women in their leadership journey and take inspiration in their corporate journey. Welcome, Deepa.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So, I would like to start by asking your leadership journey. What are the challenges that you faced in your career? Because you have qualified as an engineer, but you chose HVAC as your entry point.
It's been a very interesting journey. Actually, a lot of people have gotten into engineering as women. But I got into the electrical area of design first and did my electrical engineering in Gindi Engineering College, Chennai. And then moved as my first job into the HVAC design fraternity. I was actually one of the first women engineers to join Voltas. Voltas is number one HVAC part of the Tata Group company, and they've had a lot of women that worked in Voltas, but predominantly at that time in the admin and HR positions, not so much in the design community. So I was one of the first women design engineers recruited by Voltas back in 96, 97. And that's how my design journey into buildings and air conditioning and energy efficiency in buildings started. It was an interesting journey, I'd say, because there are not many women even today in the HVAC design fraternity. But it was never a real challenging issue per se. And there was no precedence. So for everybody, it was a new thing. So I, kind of took it along the way. But something that I always believed in is to put in a lot of effort and to, ensure that from our side, if we are able to work hard and diligently, then, people will recognize the work done, irrespective of, who is doing it. And that's how my whole design journey started.
So what kind of support you received from the male counterparts during your initial phase?
It was a very supportive environment. So, HVAC design is not something that's taught in colleges. So, once we come as engineers into the organization, we go through an elaborate training program. And that includes not just design, but also field training and factory training. So, we've, worked in the factory at the initial stage where they are assembling air conditioners. So, you get an orientation of everything. Okay. So, people have been supportive all along. It was never a challenge per se as a woman. And fortunately, I think that, even for the male counterparts and my colleagues or my seniors, it was not, it was different, but I think it was not, unusual thing for them, and that was good.
Yeah, when you pitch for a business as a consulting firm, typically from an automotive industry, for example, so how were they taking you? Because women in that particular field now coming in is very less. So as a lady approaching the automotive industry to pitch for business, how was the experience?
It was a good experience. I mean, see, our area of focus is predominantly in sustainable design, and sustainability, I think, is more closer to women, and we see a lot of women in various aspects of sustainability.
Why do you say so, closer to women?
In the sense that I think women are more passionate about many things, and the environment is one of them. I'm not saying that the men don't care about the environment. It's just that probably women are more vocal about it, and they tend to talk more about it. So being in sustainable design, when I reached out to clients, I think that it was more the passion that they appreciated. It was not that it was coming from a male or a female consultant. It was more about the conviction, the passion, and the value that we brought as a consultant to their organization, and the effort that we could work with them so that they could become more environmentally responsible, synced with many clients. So I think that it was not a challenge, neither was a barrier. So it was.
But was there any hesitation being to give business to a lady in this particular field?
I think that I personally didn't see too much of that. There was hesitation in embracing sustainability as a concept by many people, but it was not because it was coming from a woman, because I think that when I co-founded along with my partner En3 in 2003, sustainability was still a very new concept here in India. Slowly people had heard about it and they were talking about it, but very few people were doing about it. So it was a new concept for everybody. So there was always initial apprehension when every new concept is brought forward. There are always a lot of questions, a lot of clarifications that clients need. So there was a lot of initial hesitation for sustainability as a concept. I don't think it was because it was Deepa or because it was a woman, really.
What are the challenges you faced, and then how did you overcome?
I think that the biggest challenge for any new industry is to establish, the requirements and to establish credibility of why it needs to be done. So as it is for a consulting firm, there are always a lot of challenges. But we were consulting for an area of business that did not exist. So I think that the initial challenges we faced was to explain to people what we do and why we do what we do. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, but that can be taken care by our manufacturing team. That can be taken care by our design team. That can be taken care by our R&D team. Every time, or if we talk about the build industry, they would always say that that can be taken care by the architect or by the designer. So why do we need you as a specialized sustainable person, and what is the value that you bring in addition to what everybody else is already doing? So that was the initial challenges in terms of explaining what we do and why it is important and what is the value that we can bring to their organization or to their project or to their product, which did not exist already. So I think that the biggest challenge was in terms of setting up an ecosystem for sustainable design and consulting in the country. And since we were one of the very early organizations, we had a huge role to play in setting up that for future organizations to actually easily adapt and follow.
What's your view on empowering women? To what extent it's been in practical terms, because there are a lot of talks about it?
I think that women have become an integral part of the workforce today in any industry, and rightly so. There are always challenges in terms of organizations and certain job profiles within an organization to attract women because of the traditional conventional thought processes, but even that is changing. I think that women empowerment, we have done reasonable work as a country, as the industry. What we need is probably a lot more of an ecosystem to provide them with the training and also the support in order for them to grow further within organizations. I think support both from the organizational side and also from the personal side. See, we see a lot of women in the initial and the mid-level management positions. It's still a challenge to see women rise up to the top. There have been some phenomenal women who have come up to the top and are,
But very few.
leading. But in terms of percentage-wise, that's still a very small number. And we see a lot of women probably being very happy being at the middle management level for whatever reason, maybe personal reasons, maybe family reasons, maybe, various other limitations. We see a lot of talent, but we don't necessarily see them coming all the way up. So at that point, the ecosystem and the support to give women that confidence and the support, to get them up there. That is something that I think we can do better. It's a lot of organizations are doing it, not to discount, work that's being done. But we can, I think, personally, I feel a lot more things can be done.
As a person, getting into a very niche area, probably the first one to get into the HVAC system and everything, and then you have grown. Now you have a consultancy firm, and then supporting a lot of companies. What is your suggestion for them who are stuck somewhere in the middle and not going beyond? What do you say? I mean, it can be many reasons, you said.
Yeah, I mean, if they are not, going up because of personal reasons, sometimes it could be lack of confidence. Sometimes it could just be that they're scared. Sometimes, it's an unknown territory, and there are very few people that they can, relate to at that point. So I think that, it's sometimes you just have to take the jump. When I got into consulting and I set up the company, it was still an unknown territory for me, because in the sense that we really didn't know how much of an impact we could make, and, how would we, survive as an organization and how we will grow. Today we are happy that we are now 18 years almost and running, and almost 60% of my workforce is women within my own organization.
Wow.
So we know that sometimes you have to take that plunge, and there are always challenges that you will face along the way. So if the rise to the top is a personal limitation, that you feel that you don't have the confidence or the training or the support, then sometimes it's good to still take that plunge, and support will come. It's never the case that everything is ready and then you can jump. So but many times out of experience I can say that support has always come in when it was required. So you can't get into something asking 10 people, will you support me? Will you support me? But people have come in and supported in different ways, whether it's clients, whether it's your own family members, partner, or even your own staff. So you have to sometimes take that plunge. In terms of other challenges, if the ecosystem within the company is not fully set up to help women rise up to the top, then there are opportunities that companies can surely look at implementing, maybe providing some sort of mentorship, providing some sort of peer connect and network. See, one of the biggest challenges I hear from senior women is you have very few people that you can talk to. Because within the organization, if you're the number one leader, obviously there are certain things that you can't talk to your subordinates. There's only so much that maybe family can also support, especially I'm talking about support from the business perspective. So you need also a sort of a mentor network where you can bounce off ideas, where you can talk about any unique challenge that you're facing to get input. So you need a sort of to say a very reliable, non-judgmental forum where you can talk about these things. And I know that many such forums for men exist. It's very easy if a CEO of a particular industry or organization has a unique challenge. He probably has 10 other CEO friends in
Correct.
different industries that they can pick up the call and call and talk to them and say, hey, we're facing this. Have you come across something like that? Is there any? And you get a lot of inputs to take right decisions. That becomes a challenge with women because they hesitate to call some of their male counterparts. They don't have enough female counterparts or that sort of a network that they can freely talk about without confidentiality, as well as sort of being non-judgmental about the issues that they have. I think some of those need to develop. So as we see some of those developing, you'll see a lot more women coming into the fold.
You have your presence, I think 4-5 countries in different continents. How do you really manage the work-life balance, family and work?
I think that it's all about spending quality time rather than quantity time. So I've been traveling. I have a son who's 15 years old now, but I've been traveling ever since he was 6 months old. But I tend to make very short trips. And usually, in fact, for a long time, I used to just do day trips, the first flight out and the last flight in, so that I could, be back home with him. But I had a great family support system. One of the biggest, I think, we don't talk about it a lot, and I don't think we also realize the benefit that comes with it is the Indian household ecosystem. I used to live and work in the US before I moved back to India. And I think that that's a big support, and many of us don't realize it. And I think that we don't appreciate it also, whether it's the parents or the in-laws or the extended family support that you get for your, taking care of your children, taking care of the household. It's a huge, support that we have. And, that's a great, strength for India, and I think that's one of the biggest pluses for Indian women. Sometimes we don't we don't appreciate it enough. Sometimes we don't also take advantage of it. And I would tell women that all the time, if you want a good work-life balance, it's okay to lean into family. It's okay to lean into extended family for some of these supports, so that it doesn't compromise your time and effort elsewhere. But it's always, I think, a challenge. A lot of good time management is required. Women are good reasonably with multitasking and time management. So that really helps in terms of doing multiple things at the same time.
So a lot of talks about new mobility now. We discussed electric, hydrogen, etc. Do you see prospects for women changing in the new mobility coming in?
Yeah, I think that there was. I think the automotive industry is in the cusp of a dramatic change. Today, when we talk of climate change and sustainability, it's not about one particular sector or one particular industry. Climate change is an issue, I think, that globally every industry and every business is grappling with. And it's no different for the automobile industry. And automobile industry is now in this sort of point where they really have to make a dramatic jump and leap towards more sustainable solutions, and they're already kind of moving in that direction. I think that where women can play a big role in the future in the industry is we're going to move out of traditional manufacturing practices to a lot of what we call as circular economy, what we call as sustainable supply chain management. We're going to have a lot of technology that is going to interface with the manufacturing in a way to make it more efficient, to reduce carbon emissions. So there are a lot of areas that we see women can actually contribute very big, whether it is in the IT technology side or it is in the design and R&D side. We're going to see a lot of supply chain mechanisms that are going to come into place. So supply chain management, when we talk of circular economy, you're talking about looking at every component that you use from what we call as a cradle to cradle approach. So it's not just about buying the least expensive component or the most efficient component anymore. Now you're starting to ask the questions that how was it manufactured, how was it extracted, how much energy was used in the making of that component, what was the carbon emissions associated with that component, is there an alternative component or a source or a product that I can use which has a lesser carbon footprint. So you're going to have a lot of these design discussions right from the R&D concept stage all the way till your manufacturing and processing. Women can play a very big role. Carbon accounting is going to be becoming very big. Today, if you look at EU already, every factory has to report its annual carbon footprint. They have to actually measure the carbon emissions of every activity that they do within the factory, and then they have to report it. And then they have to actually set up a program to reduce it over a period of time. And a lot of companies have already committed to being zero carbon. So there'll be a lot of science-based calculations, analysis, a lot of initiatives in that space. And women can obviously play a very big role. In fact, if you see a lot of the organizations globally, not so much yet in India, but if you see in the US, for example, like we have a CEO, a CFO, a CTO, and a CIO. Now the latest is a CSO, Chief Sustainability Officer.
Yes.
We're seeing that already for a lot of IT companies, for a lot of real estate companies. And very surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly for me, is almost 60 to 70% of that role is by women. Most of the sustainability people, like I said, I think that it's just that women are probably more drawn closer to aspects of sustainability. And, so we will see a lot of these amalgamations of sustainability into the automotive industry in the future. And I see a lot of women in that space. So it's going to change. And of course, even as manufacturing processes change, we'll see even a lot more women in the we're already starting to see that, and that's only going to likely grow. So it's I think that the way it's going to be in the future is it's not about it's men or women, it's just going to be about efficient workforce and certain skills. Inherently women are more efficient, and certain skill men are more efficient. So you're going to see a lot more of that mix, and rightly so, I suppose, and it's best for the organization overall.
I would like to thank you, Deepa, for taking your time to talk to women in mobility, which is part of Mobility Outlook. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be part of this program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.